fun. That is what I call my music. I don't own it. Obviously, it's for everybody. But I latched on to this kind of music when my daughter was about 6 years old. I went to a little bit of a camp. It happened to be a cultural camp of Eastern European Jewish people. And I thought, that sounds like my people. I think I'll go. And I'll take my daughter and she'll learn what it's like, you know, to have grown up years and, you know, centuries ago. So I heard this music and I thought, whoa, that's really cool music. And I went up to someone, I said, what is that? She said, that's klezmer. I said, I didn't know. So you have now just played klezmer for the first time, and so the next time, first of all, that you're on Jeopardy, and the question comes up, what Jewish music, no, that's not the way it goes. Jewish music from Eastern Europe, klezmer, okay, klezmer. Oh, that's right, I would have lost it. So, what is klezmer? And what is klezmer? It is instrumental music. It is not vocal music. Sorry. However, it started, everybody sang the tunes that we play. But it never has words to it. And that is called Yiddish song when it is. So klezmer is instrumental music. And it actually goes back to the 16th century. You know, longer than what we know about. We just know from people writing it down that there was music for this celebration and that celebration. And it was a person called a klezmer who played it. And nothing thrilled me more than to play an orchestra concert a few years ago. And I was just at the reception and somebody taps me and said, aren't you the klezmer? Not the principal flute of this major orchestra, but aren't you the klezmer? I said, yes! So it was, you know, it was really thrilling. What I just performed it on is pretty much the last vestige of the current flute that you're playing. This is an instrument made in 1904, and it has a much darker sound. It's a mellow sound, and it's actually also a little bit lower in pitch. I'm blowing it as sharp as I can. Pitch, just for fun information, has changed. Back 300 years ago or so, it was certainly not established as A being 440. People did not play A. It might have been something like, that was an A. And in the 1930s sometime, do you know the answer to exactly when we established the 440? I think it was 1930 something. There was a conference. Don't you ever wonder what happens at certain conferences? What do you guys discuss? Well, somebody thought that we finally needed to establish pitch because as Jane brought her Baroque flute, it has what you call chord de rechange. This part always came with it, this part always came with it, but this part, and without keys, would always be changed. So you would go from church to church, and you would say to the organist, please play your tuning note. You know, play a chord of some sort, and you listen to what the organ was playing. Oh, we're at that pitch. And you go into your case and pull out the flute that was closest to that. Most flutes have lost their different little pieces. What I do not have a real keyless flute, but I want to show you one of my treasures. You'll notice that I don't have any metal flutes with me. The reason for the metal flute really was to get a different color, a brighter sound, and the orchestras were getting louder and louder and louder and louder. And they figured, the composers and the makers, you know, I think it might work that the composer composes something and the flutist can't be heard, and so you decide you better go get something that can play, you know, with a bigger sound. And so the metal has won out. Jane and I are two loyal wood flute players. However, we both own and play our silver flutes when appropriate music needs it. This flute is delicious to even touch. Just stroke the wood. It's like a good piece of furniture. It's got a wax on it that I think is just very, I don't know, it's very aesthetic. This flute was made in 1796. Can you imagine what period? What do you know in your history classes? What happened in 1796? Anything that anybody comes to mind? Your great grandfather's birthday? And this is before, these are ivory. And what we don't know is whether some ivory was elephant, but some ivory was actually, you can look at it afterwards, but it's really cool. Some ivory is actually mastodon. Can you imagine? Mastodon. Especially, I believe, in the 19th century.
Mastodon meaning what?
Meaning the fossilized, prehistoric animal, whatever you call it, creature. So this also is possibly mastodon. You have to know the coloring and be an aficionado of ivory to know which is mastodon and which is not. It's the white versus the yellow. So I don't personally know myself. There's a guy in Southern California who's very good at analyzing which. So this is pretty much the flute that came before the Boehm system. You all play Boehm system flutes. That's spelled B-O-E-H-M, and sometimes called Boehm, and sometimes called Bohm. Depends on where you are, what part of the world you're in. In England, they've pretty much told me that they call it Bohm. So you all can play the Boehm, Boehm, Bohm system. So this system is actually called the simple system. I don't find it to be very simple, but it must have been simple to somebody. Who's the clarinet player?
Used to play clarinet.
Okay. You have the same system for old clarinet, simple system. It's also known as the Albert system. You've heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this will have a totally different sound, certainly from those flutes. And it is in part because of the ivory. Isn't it mellow? It's got a rich sound. What I find peculiar is that there's a metal sleeve inside this. Then why make it out of ivory? Other than I think it's pretty, but something tells me that wasn't the reason. But It could be that because we all have these walls, these edges that we call walls, and sometimes your teacher will say, you need to blow against the wall. You need to turn away from the wall, da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, that's what we're talking about, is this other edge. And it makes a difference. If I'm going to blow down into it, I'm going to get an edgier sound than. So it's supposed to make a difference, and that's why we have embouchures to form different sounds. And then finally, I have any of you heard what they call trad music? I think, who was here when Chris Norman came? Okay, so a couple of you. Wasn't that pretty darn exciting? He plays Celtic music, he plays Scottish music, and he plays Baroque, and it's mostly on this kind of flute. This was made in 1812, and this was made in England, and out of a different material, and it's going to sound brighter to you. Brighter, bigger sound. And in order to play in sessions, pretty much you need something this big, big a sound. And you'll see, this might even be a bigger embouchure hole than that, or it's about the same. It's a different, this is a little more circular, and ours are more oval. And that's been an experiment since day one. I think the flute has been the most worked on instrument that I can think of. You know it's the oldest. I suppose you can call drumming, the oldest, but we don't think of drums as an instrument, do we? So, they found, certainly in China, the bone flute. Bone, not bone. The bone flute, and I think it's pretty special that we play the oldest, pretty much the oldest instrument that was actually made particularly to make a sound, not just, I can call that a drum, I don't, or go to the next tree stump and call that a drum. I didn't do anything for it. But to find a piece of bone and find holes cut out, that's at least making an instrument. So some of you are working on early music. We call early music from pretty much the 18th century, so the 1700s, and it is based a lot on dances. And the reason why we started with Klezmer is because they're both based on dance music. And I am becoming more and more aware that communities get together to play dance music, whether there's dances or not, but that's a reason to come together. Sometimes you call them gypsies because they don't learn from music, it's just passed along. And that's really what the term gypsy is referring to, is just passed along family to family, community to community, and they just get together and what we would now call jam. And to me, what brings to life some music is to know that it came from that kind of culture, just sitting around and jamming. A kind of early gypsy music, Baroque, sounds different. I'm going to ask you to do something. practicing, you've all been practicing your scales, right? Just nod your heads. Of course. So throughout our history, we have different scales. So that to know the scale, a typical E minor scale would have helped. So I can now use that to teach her to quickly play something, and then the next scale would have been D major. So I'm going to ask you to play 8 E's. Ba, 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 and then switch to D, okay? And then we're going to put a rhythm to it. So the E people, E. Oh, sorry, me. Okay, so ba 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 ba. No, that's too complicated. Ba 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 ba. 1, 2, 3 E's. 1, 2, 3 D's. Okay. The D will come next. So 1, da, da, 2, da, da, 3. Paying attention?
Yes.
Okay. 1, da, da, 2, da, da, 3, da, da, 4, da, da. You stop. Ba, da, 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 da. So what we're doing right now, you don't play while they play D's. Okay? So what we're doing is experiencing 18th century sounds in the folk world. Okay? So, you got your parts? Me. You're on me. You're on me. You're on Ray.
In the lower or
Guess what? In improvisation, we don't care what octave we're on. We have full choice. You've got how many Rays can you think of? 3. Okay. There are 4 that we can do. So 3 is, you can choose with any of those 3. We've got a possibility of 4 E's. You've got probably 3 to choose from. Me. Okay, here we go. So you're going to go E, 3, and now switch. 2, 3, 4, 1. Right. Here we go. Okay. All right, here we go. Starting on E. 1, 2, ready, go. About my background. Let's see. I grew up in Ohio, which is a Midwestern state, and very conservative there. And we weren't very forward in thinking or fashion or anything. And so I kind of learned to appreciate old stuff. And even when I went on to college, I loved Baroque music. I loved the earliest kind of music. And then my next passion became this klezmer, which is also an early kind of music. Yeah, I went through the kind of modern sounds, you know, if you know, I certainly experienced, you know, plenty of I love that, but I have a feeling I'm enjoying it more than the audience. I don't know why, but when, I mean, have you been in the audience when there's modern music and you can tell that the performers are like just having a ball and going, oh my God, I can't wait till it's over. So I think it's an experiential, you know, feeling, and I think the earlier music is more accessible to both the performer and maybe it's an ego thing too. You know, when I'm playing modern music, you know, you kind of really, you know, get more, you can blow harder. I mean, I'm a blower, both Jane and I are big blowers, but there's only, you know, I'm not going to find in any early piece, I'm not going to find that. Although, did you know that the early fingering charts, I'm looking at this early music person here, they go up to high D. Yeah, look at the one I just played. I'm not going to hurt you again. So and you can do that on a traverso if everything is working. You know, certainly when we get to a